Welcome to the Taking Care of Tutu podcast. I'm your host, Meg Obanoff. Today, we're excited to have Cindy Fowler from the Alzheimer's Association. Welcome, Cindy.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you inviting me today.
What's your job with the Alzheimer's Association? What's your title?
My title is the program manager for both Kauaʻi and Maui County.
And how long have you been with them?
About 2.5 years now, I've been with the association. My background actually is in physical therapy, and I worked for a number of years with kūpuna basically in home health settings, a little bit in skilled nursing facilities as well. So this was a population and a topic that was near and dear to my heart, I think, especially after working in home health, watching so many families dealing with either a new diagnosis or a change in condition, and then trying to negotiate and navigate how to deal with coming out of a hospitalization and coming back home. And now knowing maybe there's something new or different happening, and just all that dynamic that's involved with family and getting community resources involved.
Tell us about the different programs that the Alzheimer's Association offers.
Our Aloha chapter represents the state, and we're based out of Oahu. But we've got care and support people, myself, that covers the four islands, Kauai, Maui, Molokai, and Lanai. And then I've got Nick, who is over on Big Island, and Gina, who covers Oahu. And we call ourselves the Care Bears. We oversee care and support for the organization. And so really what we do is try and get out in the community to be able to help family caregivers with education, with awareness, with caregiving tips and skills. But we also do what we call awareness programs, where we go out into maybe smaller groups like Rotary clubs or church groups and give them a little bit of an understanding about what dementia is. Talk with them a little bit about early warning signs, talk with them about what we're now learning about brain health and prevention, and then just giving them kind of an overview of what the association can do. We do one-on-one help with caregivers if they're having specific issues related to caregiving. We call those care consultations, and those consist of a mini session of sitting down, working through what the problem is, strategizing ways that we can help them, ways that tips, tricks that they can try themselves, and then an action plan where we check back in with them and just make sure that they're kind of having a trajectory in the right direction. There are certain areas of the brain that we do see more impacted early on. The hippocampus is one of those areas. There are certain areas that we do expect to see more neuron death in atrophy of that part of the brain earlier on, but it is different in each person. We then have to broaden the idea of dementia versus Alzheimer's. And a lot of times I get the question of what is the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's? And dementia is a big umbrella term that refers to any of a number of neurocognitive disorders that affect behavior, thinking, memory, cognition. And Alzheimer's
like the Lewy body dementia.
Like the Lewy body, yes. So Alzheimer's is just one form of dementia. And really, we know that there are over 100 different types of dementia now. The four leading causes of dementia are Alzheimer's, which is anything you normally see in publication, is that it's anywhere between 60 and 80% of most cases. So I think that's why most people get Alzheimer's and dementia confused, is because it is probably the leading type of dementia. And then the other four are Lewy body, like I mentioned, vascular dementia, which is usually associated with head injury or stroke or a number of TIAs, any of those kinds of vascular problems in the brain. And then the last one is frontotemporal dementia, which we tend to see happen more often in men and younger men. The actor Bruce Willis is somebody that has that now, and his wife is raising a lot of awareness about frontotemporal dementia.
And I think one of the things that's particularly tricky about that one, where it's a younger man, that I've heard from clients is that this person is still big and physically healthy, and the spouse cannot care physically for them any longer. And the person I'm thinking of had a difficult time finding care for him.
Yes, I would agree with you. Families that I meet that are dealing with FTD, gosh, I just sympathize with their situation because you're exactly right. It very often happens in big, strong, healthy guys
Mhm.
that they and now their frontal lobe, which is where like our impulse control
Mhm.
and our temporal lobe, which has that communication. So a lot of times it's just no thought, just things come out. They do very impulsive things. There's very little safety awareness. You can see that it would just be a huge recipe for disaster,
Yeah.
for safety and health. And so that is a tough one. But what I was going to say earlier is that each one of these diseases has a little bit different of a presentation. And so you also see different kind of symptoms and physiology that's happening, biology that's happening in the brain with each specific disease. And so that also can kind of indicate, especially when doctors are starting to try and do a diagnosis, they do look at that evaluation and that family interview about what symptoms they are seeing, because that time at times can really help to narrow the focus on what type of dementia they might think that they're dealing with.
Can you just say what eloping
It,
is?
it
It's not getting married, but that also
sorry.
happens sometimes. The getting married we've had happen a couple times, but this eloping is
Eloping is escaping, leaving where they are supposed to be, kind of either sneaking off or running off, but leaving where they are expected to be at. Um, but we have people that put different kinds of things in front of a door that maybe look like people put like a black rug so that it gives them the visual of thinking that it's a hole. There are all different
oh
kinds of
my
things that you
goodness.
can do. Yes, I know families have come up with kind of crazy strategies of putting things in front of the door that makes the person not want to go near the door.
Oh my
So
God.
it's a lot of tips, tricks, things like that that you just that families come up with in order to keep the person safe and healthy.
And I think that would be the value in one of those one-on-one consultations with someone
Yes.
from the Alzheimer's Association is that you have the expertise. Usually the person going through it has never done this before. And then you can say, maybe try painting the door or maybe try putting a black rug in front of the door. Just those practical ideas that someone could try to implement. So every person isn't reinventing it from scratch every time when there is a bunch of collective knowledge about this disease.
Yes. And the sidetrack, there's a couple of people on social media now that are doing this that have just great. I can give you a list of people that, if you want to include that,
Okay.
that really have enjoyed their very practical tips that they have and
Right.
implement them whenever I can. Okay, driving.
Yes.
Um, Driving is a tough one. I have a lecture series on Kauai, and we have started it. We partner with AARP, and I basically just have a dementia topic each month, and we try and find a local expert that will come in and talk about it. And in the last couple of months, we've been able to get a volunteer who knows tech. And so we've started making those available to our folks on Maui County so that they can join in on those. But we did have one of our primary, no, he's actually a geriatrician here on Kauai that was willing to broach the topic of driving because nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to address it because it's a really hard topic and there's so much liability around it, you know?
We only
In
have
Hawaii,
PET scans on Oahu, right?
yes. Well,
Yeah.
no, there are PET scans. I believe there is PET scans on neighbor islands. I'm not sure about that.
Mhm.
But the problem is we don't have the amyloid PET
Oh, I
anywhere in
see.
Hawaii.
Okay.
Now, Straub is in the process of getting a contract, and they're saying by next spring we should have an amyloid PET in the state.
Wow. Wow.
But in the meantime, what doctors do is it's a combination of physical assessment or physical exam, blood labs, an MRI, and a spinal tap. And the spinal
Oh.
tap, yes. So in Hawaii, it's a pretty invasive assessment process. And the
Uh,
reason being is that I mentioned that amyloid plaque. There's another protein. Amyloid is a protein that our body naturally makes. And for whatever reason, with Alzheimer's, it starts to build up in the brain. So we have another protein that is another key indicator for Alzheimer's, and that is called tau protein. And the tau protein is what shows up in the spinal tap. So when they take that little bit of cerebrospinal fluid, when they look at it under a microscope, they can start to see these little tau buildup, which they call tau tangles. And so that is how we get a confirmed diagnosis in Hawaii currently.
I didn't
But
know. That's
with
really
that,
invasive.
it's really invasive. And so
Yeah.
now it would be interesting, and I don't know the answer because the blood test just became FDA approved in like July, August. It's been pretty recent. So I'm kind of wondering if doctors will maybe potentially move away from the spinal tap and instead do a combination of the MRI, the labs, and then
the blood
test. Yeah. It would be much less invasive, and I think would potentially have more people being willing to do the assessments too.